It is now time to review AEW All In Texas that occurred on July 12th, 2025 over in Arlington, Texas at the Globe Life Field. Of course, I had the privilege to be there. I'm still in the midst of traveling, as if you have the benefit of video right now, you can tell I'm not in my usual digs. I am in my Wisconsin hideout for now. So I'm recording everything here basically from Kristen's spot, where she has graciously allowed me to just do whatever I want here. Well, maybe that's going a little too far, but she did say, hey, you know what? If you want to go ahead and do your All In review, you can go ahead and do it. I don't have a problem with that. So you sure? You sure? Yes. And here we are. There we are. So. Still on the road, still traveling, still having a bit of a wonky schedule. As I had mentioned multiple times, I wasn't going to be able to get this review out quickly because we basically were road tripping. We did everything by car. We left from Wisconsin and went all the way to Arlington by motor vehicle, using the grand interstates that exist throughout the United States, and then came back the exact same way. Well, not the exact same way. A bit of another path. But if you've been following me on Blue Sky, which you should, I've posted some of the stops that we were at. I've been having a really nice time, and it's just it wasn't realistic for me to be able to get the review out on time, like the next day or whatever. It just couldn't work. It just couldn't work. And now today, what is it? We're Wednesday, the 16th of July. This is when I'm recording this. So a couple of days have passed. A lot of things have started to settle in. So, maybe we'll be able to glean some extra stuff that I wouldn't have been able to do had I recorded immediately the next day, or maybe not. Maybe it's just going to be the same old stuff. Also, since I am not at home and I don't have access to my usual suite of recording and editing equipment, maybe this review will be a little, not quite as put together. If any of my videos are typically put together, but maybe it won't be as usually put together. Might have some, it might get a little sloppy in some points, but I think right now the important thing is that I sat down and put this all together, and that we're all together. I think that's the most important thing right now, right? That we're all together, and if goofy old Uncle Warren is being a little sloppy, well, then, we're just gonna have to live with it. That's all there is to it. So I had the chance to see the show live, and it was tremendous. Like it was absolutely fantastic. It was like, to be completely transparent, this was the first time I've been in that I went to an MLB stadium, unless you count me as a tot in the 80s going to see the Montreal Expos at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal. I did that once, like when I was a kid. But I'm talking like, modern, contemporary, Major League Baseball stadium. This was the first time. And I was so taken aback, because when you arrive at Globe Life Field, you just walk in and the stadium's just right there. Like, the field is just right there. Obviously, you don't see the field. Everything's set up for the show, right? So I'm not seeing like the diamond and but it's so like it's so impressive when you walk in and you have the seats there, and I'm like, holy shit, what a setup! And it looks really good for a wrestling show, And I thought the production looked tremendous. Now, of course, there's a lot of insights that I will not be able to provide when it comes to production. There's a lot of things, whatever was being said on commentary or whatnot. Of course, I did not have the benefit of Taz, Excalibur, and Tony, I guess it was Tony Schiavone. I did not have the benefit of them in my ear throughout the show. Couldn't tell you about certain things though. So there's a lot of stuff about production that I won't be able to talk about. But I got to tell you, for a wrestling stadium show, this setup was terrific. I thought like the lighting was great. Everything looked really well put together. I really didn't have any qualms about it. Now, what I did hear, from hanging out on social media after the show and whatnot, is like the biggest critique that was coming out was that the crowd was dead. The crowd didn't sound alive for this great show, and people were just mostly silent throughout the show. And I can tell you right now, with confidence and aplomb, that we were not silent. This was a hot crowd that was really excited for this show. The moments, and we'll get to them as we review it, the moments that may have been not quite as exciting, the crowd responded in kind, or failed to, was, depending, responded appropriately, let's put it that way. But I don't adhere to anyone saying, oh, the crowd is dead, they're not into this. We were fucking into it. Like the entire, and of course there's moments, there's pops that happen during the show that were just phenomenal. I'm sure came across well on screen, but I don't know how well, for instance, the pre-bell pop that Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega came across, because those two guys got a pop before the bell rang, when they were just hanging around in the ring together. People were chanting. I believe we were chanting, "This is awesome." There was even I don't know how it came across either, but there was even a "We're not worthy" chant going on as well. Like, people were really into it. I can't adhere to that, and you're gonna have to take my word for it. As someone who was there on location, I don't know. There's two matches, I'd say, and a certain stretch within one particular match that people really weren't into. And I think you can also see it on TV. I think you can see it on TV, right? You had to. Look, I'll stop beating around the bush. One of these matches was the TNT title match, right? The 4-way. Most folks went to take a piss break on that one. Went to get food at the concessions. Went to line up for merch, which was what I did. I didn't stick around for that match. I was completely uninterested from the moment that they announced that it was no longer a one-on-one match. I was like, I don't care. So I went off and did something else. So unfortunately, I will not be able to provide any true insight on the match. Despite I have thoughts on the result and whatnot, and we'll get to that, of course. But and people were really walking out in droves on that one. So I believe that probably came across on television. You probably saw a lot of people, a lot of movement, but everyone came back to sit down for the Bucks versus Hangman. Swerve and Will. Everyone just came back. So, like I said, I think most folks figured it out that this was that. Yeah, or not figured it out, but sorry, I misspoke there. But I think most folks reacted appropriately to the situation, where they're like, well, we don't care about this match. Like, it was all thrown together. Like, we're off to do something else. And that's what they did, right? But the other matches that happened on the show, people were legitimately into it, especially when it came to the big time shows, right? So, and just as a quick aside here, because I did get on the topic of merch here, and I'll move away from my personal experience at Global Life Field, which was tremendous, by the way. I thought it was I think it's a really cool venue. I have no point of comparison, but I enjoyed myself a lot. I kind of figure I if I could come back, I would. My whole stay in Arlington was tremendous. But, last point on my personal experience at that venue is it has to do with the merch counters, with the merch lines. The AEW had set up a shop. Like, they advertised it as a shop, but it was basically tents that were outside of the venue that you could get to if you lined up to go into, right? So you sort of look at it and you sort of look at Kristen and I went to the venue to line up around 11 a.m. and there was already tons of people. We probably should have gone earlier. In all fairness, we should have gone earlier. Well, we got there at 11 and we started lining up and we saw the outside shop, and it was basically just tents, and they were already lacking in merch. Like the cool stuff, the stuff, you wanted the good All In hat. You wanted a Bruv shirt. You want, the All In, I was at All In shirt with the cowboy on it. Those were already all gone. But the girl was working the lines, telling people what was up. She said, well, there's more available indoors. So you're like, okay, then we'll go indoors. And of course, if you like, I've been to multiple AEW shows, and every time it's the same thing. There's 2 merch tables set up with an insane, both with an insane length, excuse me, an insane queue. There you go. Excuse me. They're staying in. I can't cut them out. I'm sorry. I apologize. They're just like an incredible queue. And if you've been to an AEW show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now imagine a venue that's supposed to have like 29,000 people in it, and all these people are lining up to get to some merch. Like, it's just insane. And, we get there, and I didn't quite line up at the start. When we got in, we went to our seats. I went to meet up with, I met Sarah from the Trish and Sarah podcast, which was tremendous. Run into people and whatnot, and you chit chat, and it's lovely. And then you're like, well, okay, well, the first match is about to start, so you go and you sit down to watch the opener, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm not interested in the TNT title match. I'll go line up for merch there. And when you do, well, then when you do, the merch table is practically out of everything already. And I'm like, what the fuck? How is AEW so bad at this? And on top of being bad at it, because they never, this is the constant, they never bring enough merch, or at least they never bring enough merch of the merch that people actually want. I mean, no disrespect to Speedball Mike Bailey. They were selling, headbands, like Bailey wears, written Speedball on it. I mean, no disrespect to Mike Bailey. No one wants that. that they had plenty left over. But the All In shirt, the All In caps, and all gone. And here's what's most infuriating on top of it all. And then I promise I'm stopping, but the most infuriating part is not only is AEW or Pro Wrestling Tees or whoever the fuck actually manages this, not only are they incapable of bringing enough merchandise to satisfy the demand that exists in these venues, people lining up to say, take my money. Not only that, but they're also completely oblivious to people who are clearly buying merch to go toss on eBay. As I was waiting, there's one guy who cleared out the hats, the All In hats, as I was waiting in line. He must have bought 6-8 hats. And I was like, he's not sitting there with 8 kids. And he said, sit down, children. I will go get you 8 All In caps. No, he just cleared them all out. He asked whatever was left, and he took it all. And no one says a fucking word. And he had a stack of shit too. I'm like, this guy it's clear what this guy is going to do. He's going to take the stuff and he's going to pop it up on eBay. And I thought that was really shitty, because I was waiting for a hat for sure. And when it's finally my turn, I said, I want a hat. The girl says, we're out of hats. Yeah, because the motherfucker, 10 people before me emptied out all the remaining hats. It's like, well, can I have a Bruv shirt? Oh, there's only smalls left. I'm like, so basically, I spent the entirety of the TNT title match waiting in line for merchandise that I never got. And I was there and I was ready to give AEW money for this merchandise. I was ready to give you money. I was even planning on buying a hat for a friend of Kristen's that lives here in Wisconsin. I was like, bring him a nice souvenir and be happy. Another AEW fan that was, that couldn't make it, unfortunately. And, that'll make him, couldn't do nothing. So the story remains the same for AEW. Now, I don't know what WWE does. I haven't been to a WWE show in years. I don't know. I don't know how they fixed it up now. But the travails that exist for AEW to, get it together and try to get some decent merch tables together and then logistically have them work. Because your wait's so fucking long. And I understand, like, some people treat this like they're at the mall. Right? And it's their turn and they're going, and they're still scratching their chin going, and they got all this shit available. And could I maybe try that and tries it on? Nah, not that. Maybe this one. Like, come on, man. It's like, let's go. Like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way logistically to manage this. And there's got to be a way that AEW can sell merchandise and not run out of the stuff that people want. Like, trust me, I wasn't the only one disappointed. It makes no sense to me. Oh, why don't you get a nice hoodie? Brother, we're in Texas. It's 98 degrees outside. I'm now walking around with a hoodie. Anyway, that wraps up the personal aspect of it. But why don't we get into the show? Let's talk about the show that took place. 29,000 people is what Tony Khan said, I believe, at the presser, saying that as far as attendance goes, 29,000 people would have been there. Now, in the lead up, I believe WrestleTix was speculating, was estimating around, like, we had broken through the 25,000 tickets distributed barrier. So, we were still around that vicinity. Now, is that the right amount? Is Tony Khan, boosting numbers because he's a wrestling promoter? That'd be fine. Is he using the old Vince trick of, counting everything with a heartbeat as part of the attendance? Yeah, we'll find out. But whatever the exact number is, this show has been a complete and utter success. It's their biggest gate. It's their biggest gate, like, financially, and their biggest attended show in North America, in both cases. Biggest North American gate, biggest North American attendance. A complete and utter success. And, it's always a question of when, once we get to the destination, we also, people like myself, and, probably a lot of you as well, you sort of shrug your shoulders and, well, of course. But the anxiety that exists around AEW that continues to persist, it baffles me every day, where people actually wonder, are they going to make it to 25,000? They're still at 18,000. They've been at 18,000 for a month now. They're not going to crack open. When there's people like us saying, relax. They are going to bust through 20,000. I was like, if they bust through 22,000, that'll be fantastic. And now they're doing 25,000. And people put up these arbitrary goalposts. It's like, I hope they reach 25,000. And I'm like, why? Why? The show's going to be a success, whichever way. How is this going to impact your enjoyment of the show? I literally had a discussion with someone like this, where it's like, I hope they make it to 25,000. I'll be happy if they make it to 25,000. Sure, but what kind of impact does that have on you enjoying the show or not? Like, it's a good sign, don't get me wrong. But even at 20,000, even at 18,000, this was a success. 20,000, it's a success. 22,000, 25. These are just arbitrary numbers that we start throwing around, right? And but the reason why, a lot of fans do this is because of the anxiety arc that exists throughout AEW fans, where they, after such a long time being browbeat by WWE fans and, just stuff happening in the company, they're like, well, no, we can be successful too. But the point of comparison is always WWE. And I have said this multiple times on this podcast that providing I've said multiple times that comparing WWE to AEW to WWE is unfair, unjust, and doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And you can be a successful number two without having the success that WWE has, which is unprecedented, unparalleled. Don't get me wrong. Just complete out of control power, But anywho, the point ultimately that I'm making here. See, this is a point where I just clip out here because I'm reorganizing my thoughts and no one wants to see that. I just come off as weird. The important thing here is that, look, if it's 29,000, that is even more tremendous. It means it's, even bigger. And these are good signs. And I don't want to minimize the significance of these really big numbers because they're important. They're significant in showing that there is an appetite for AEW, especially if it's around 30,000. There's an appetite for it. It's growing. It's big. And if you plan these big events that are solidly built, people will come. They will turn out in droves. And I think, AEW is probably feeling real good about that right now. They're probably feeling really, really good about that right now, and they should. I don't have an issue with that. No one should have an issue with that right now. They probably feel really, really good about it, and that's a good thing. So, again, is this the exact number or not? Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot more discourse around this in the next few weeks or so. Once reports start coming in, when Freedom of Information Act documents are released about the relationship and so on and so forth. So let's not. We'll probably be revisiting this at some point without an issue. As for the show itself, finally talking about it, and we're 23 minutes in. Again, watching this show live, being there live was tremendous. I had such a good time, and I thought it was a really, really good show. Is it one of AEW's all-time greats? I don't know. I'm still on the fence about that. I don't know if it's one of their all-time great shows. I think it's in a high level. It's in a very high level, but is it a Revolution 2025 type show? No, it's not. And that's okay. It's still a tremendous show. It just maybe didn't hit the heights of their highest. It didn't hit the heights of the highs of its best shows. But I'm not sitting here telling you, well, maybe I should have stayed home and watched Saturday night's main event. No, this was a terrific show. A really, really, really good pro wrestling show. And the matches that had to deliver absolutely delivered. Like, they 100% delivered. There's a lot of stuff on this show not a lot, but there's a few things on this show where I was like, made me grit my teeth a little bit. It made me sigh. And why don't we get into it? Why don't we stop pussyfooting around here and we'll just get right into talking about the matches. And we're going to start with the top of the card and we're going to trickle our way down. Might go a little quicker once we get to the undercard matches, but to me, there was 4 matches here that had to deliver. The top 3, of course, top 3 title matches, you know which ones I'm talking about, plus the Swerve Ospreay Young Bucks match. I felt those were the 4 matches that had to deliver. And spoiler alert, they did. And we're going to start by talking about the main event, Hangman Adam Page defeating Jon Moxley to become the new AEW World Championship within the throes of a Texas death match. Look, I thought this match was terrific. You don't need me necessarily to say that either. You have 2 eyes. You saw the match. It was bloody. It was violent. There was a lot of emotion packed into it. A lot of story in there. We had the barbed wire. We had the broken glass. We had the forks. Listen, I'm sitting there in my seat, and you've got the jumbotron in the middle of the arena right now. I'm looking at, because I can't quite see what's going on in the ring, and you've got, it's just one of the most gruesome things I've seen in wrestling that's going to stay with me for a while, when Hangman is just poking at the top of Mox's head to make him bleed, just outright stabbing, and I'm like, holy shit, that's tremendous. Now, my feeling overall on this match, and I know there are people who are absolutely gung-ho on this match of the year, and nothing even comes close, etc., etc. I'm going to pull back a little bit. I'm pumping the brakes a little bit on it. And I don't want to sound like a spoil sport, but I think inevitably I'm going to sound like one. I think because I didn't like the match as much as other people did. And does that make me a bad guy? Leave a comment. Leave a comment below. And I'll tell you why. Because while I thought everything was efficient and worked well, and most importantly made sense, I thought that the run-ins and the interference and whatnot, it all kind of removed from the concept that of a match, right? And I know some people have made the comparison with Cody Roman, and I feel like that's an apropos comparison, because that's a match I disliked. But it's a match I disliked for the same reasons that I'm a little colder on this match here than others, because of all the run-ins and the special guest appearances and so and all that stuff that I felt really dragged the match down. But the difference between Page and Mox and Cody Roman is that Cody Roman, wrestling-wise, it kind of stunk. It wasn't very good. Whereas the violence, the fight here was on par, and it felt good, and it felt natural, and you weren't sitting around waiting for someone to run in, even though you expected it. I was expecting it on the weeks leading up to this. Before I went off traveling, I was talking about it on the Dynamite review. I was talking about it on stream. I was fully expecting an Avengers Assemble type of moment where all the people who have issues with the Death Riders would come in to try and protect Hangman and try to get rid of the Death Riders. And, you had Ospreay try to do it, but he got knocked out. Samoa Joe was one of those who was supposed to come in, who was expected to keep an eye out for Hangman, but he got taken out in the opener. But Swerve came out and all that. Like, I was expecting, and of course Bryan Danielson, Darby, all of this makes sense though. Like, these are all people who have a connection with the Death Riders. In the case of Swerve, he had a connection specifically with the Young Bucks, right? So, and they interfered in this match as well. So storyline wise, it all made sense, which is something I can't really say made sense with the Cody Roman stuff, especially when the Undertaker showed. I love. Anyway, we're not rehashing that. But before we got to the point where we had the run-ins, the guest appearances, I thought this match was really fucking good, and I was ready for it to keep climbing and get more brutal and violent, but it didn't. And that's where I think I'm having trouble connecting with everyone else here. Because I enjoyed the appearances, the run-ins, right? We saw Darby being dangled. Darby must have spent easily, 60, 90 seconds just dangling from the rafters before actually being lowered into view. Like, they lowered him into position, and he must have stayed there easily for a minute and a half. The longest minute and a half ever. And I could see him. I was like, oh, fuck, Darby's up there. Jesus Christ. And he's not moving. And at some point, Kristen was with me and she said, you think he's okay? Do you think it's working, Because you can't help but have flashbacks of Owen, right? You can't help it. But it all turned out okay. So, yeah. And of course, Darby Allin cutting a wrestling promo at the top of Mount Everest is unquestionably one of the greatest moments in the history of pro wrestling. Like, that is, no one will be able to replicate that. The next thing, it's like promos on Mars. That's the only thing I think at this point that will be able to top that. But nonetheless, so you have all of these events happening, and I'll be damned if I didn't pop right out of my seat and did the yes chant when Danielson showed up with the fucking Blue Panther mask. Of course, right? You're into it, so I can't say it didn't work. But as I was going back, thinking about this, particularly for today, I was like, why did it work for me? Why am I not ready to just like bury this 10 feet under the earth when it did essentially stuff that WWE does, and stuff that I loathe? I was like, well, because it spoke to me, because I'm a fan. And I think that if I go back, because I don't really remember my review of Cody Roman, if I go back and listen to it, that's probably what I say. Look, this checked all the boxes for their fan base, and it made them happy, and ultimately that's what matters. But for me, it didn't do shit. But this connected for me because I watch AEW. I'm a fan of these wrestlers. I'm into it. It all makes sense. I was able to connect all sorts of dots here. Some great surprise returns. I was like, sure, this is fun. I'm having a good time. I'm there live. The guy who got choked to death came back to give the heels some comeuppance. The guy who got thrown down some stairs, or whatever the fuck they did to Darby, I don't remember. He rappelled down after climbing Mount Everest to kick some ass too. And then the Bucks come in, but then Swerve, who has issues with the Bucks, came in to help out. Plus adding that little extra layer of frosting onto the whole Hangman Swerve story. You kind of saw it coming when you saw their exchange that they had backstage. I think I don't remember if it was on Collision or if it was on social media only, but they had a meeting, Paige and Hangman, and it was very frosty but very cordial at the same time. There's a thawing going on in their relationship. At least for this instance here, for this moment here. So, it all connected. Would I have preferred that this match be as unspoiled as possible and have Mox and Hanger just go at each other till the very end? Yes. But I also think that this was what you had to do. This is what you had to do. AEW is riding a high right now. The fans are back. They're into it. They're all of their business metrics, they're all pointing up, right? So you have the Hangman being this catalyst here over the past few months, being the guy that everyone wanted to see anointed, that whose victory would, to a degree, I guess, help fans move on from the darker period that, we're still relatively freshly getting out of when it comes to AEW. I think this was meant to be a celebration. It was meant to be for the fans, something to reward people for watching, for being invested, a thank you, right? And I don't know if I would have booked this any other way. That's the thing. It's like, I'm not even sure if myself I would have not have all of these great tie-ins, all of these connectors converging onto this match to make it feel extra special, to make it feel like to show you the state that AEW is in right now. The past, the present, the future, it all sort of came together and left you with a sense of, dare I say, hope. Leave you with a sense of that like when you finish watching a really good season of your favorite show and there's lots of resolution and stuff. That's exactly what this was. Lots of resolution. We're ready to move on. We're gonna try out some other things. And you can argue that this is going to be the test. We're not going to talk about all of that now, but as I say, golly gee willikers, I wish they had wrestled more and it would have gotten more violent. I myself, if I had the pencil, I'm not even sure myself if I would have done anything different. I really don't know. This is great. This was great. We even had a bed of nails at some point, which had some really good spots on it. Look, you've probably seen the match at this point. You don't need me to break it down. But hey, you know what? I thought Jon Moxley was terrific here. Hangman too. Don't get me wrong. I thought both guys were absolutely terrific, and they knew exactly what they needed to do here. Mox, I thought, was at the peak of his powers here. I saw old Jon Moxley here. I saw the Mox that I really like, who maximizes everything that he's capable and good at, right? Mostly. He's capitalizing on everything that he's good at to have just like this gritty, brutal match. Yeah, more CZW match Mox than Bloodsport Mox, if that makes sense. And that was good. That was the Mox that we needed here. And he was into it. You could tell he was into it. Everyone was into it. And the finish was tremendous. And you knew he was into that finish as well. The exact same way that Hangman beat him the first time, he got him here. If anyone needs a video package, I can put one together. But Mox was extraordinary. I thought he was really, really good. And you're going to be like, well, Warren, extraordinary. No, I thought he was really, really good. Yeah, I really do think he was extraordinary in this match. I don't think we haven't seen much of this Mox in this run here. We hadn't seen him in a while. And during his title run, we hadn't seen much of it. And think about the matches you really liked with Jon Moxley during this title run here. Like, for instance, the Mox Edge rematch with, the nails in the back, right? Think about that one. That's probably the one we all thought about at the same time. So think of another one. It's probably that one. Well, it's the same type of situation. It's Mox being Mox and not trying to be anything else than Mox. He was fantastic. Fucking fantastic. And now Page, well, he's the top guy. He's going to be carrying this for, I don't know. We'll see. Because Now the next level of anxiety kicks in for the Hangman fans. Now it's no longer a question of whether Hangman is going to win, whether Darby is going to, interfere or whatever the fuck, right? Now, the anxiety that's going to settle in is, how long is Hangman going to have the title? That's the next thing. Mark my fucking words. Mark them. That's the next thing they're all going to be worried about moving forward. But I thought he filled his role in perfectly. He's good. Hangman is always good. Hangman can't have a bad match. Hangman can't have a bad match. And I wasn't expecting it here. And of course it delivered, and it over-delivered, and it was tremendous. Loved the moment where he's in the ring and he cracks open the briefcase. He milked it. He did it really well. Hoist the belt. And everyone has mentioned it at this point, but for the record, I have to mention it as well. The pulls out the belt, and the side plates are still Danielson's, which was terrific. A terrific little bit of storytelling there, where Mox, when he won the title, stuffed it in a duffel bag and he's hit the bricks, right? They just stuffed it in a duffel bag, and I think Marina carried it off. Something to that, like that, right? So basically telling the story that no one has seen this fucking title. This title has not seen the light of day in months. I mean, would it have made sense to have the Jon Moxley plates on it? No. And we probably would have just gone, missed opportunity here. They didn't miss it here. It's great storytelling. And look, as an end point as a keystone moment for AEW, I think you couldn't have done it any better. I really don't. I think this was a tremendous way to wrap up to converge a bunch of stories. And don't forget that it's not just Hangman and Mox. It was Ospreay and the Death Riders and Swerve and Hangman and the Bucks, and it was all and Ospreay and Hangman as well. All of these elements converging here. I thought it was really well done. So if you're going to just start throwing people into the ring willy-nilly, might as well do it, and have it make tons of sense. I thought this was a tremendous match. And I have one more thought, but I have to do a preface here on this thought. So we're driving home yesterday, so on the Tuesday. I believe it was Tuesday. It doesn't matter. I think it was Tuesday. We're driving home, and Kristen's having a nap in the car, so I'm like, put on a podcast, and I decide to listen to Rich Kraetsch's review of All In. Rich Kraetsch of the flagship podcast Voice of Wrestling, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't, because I was like, I'm gonna record probably tomorrow, just keep myself as fresh as possible. But I was like, look, I'll just hear what he had to say. It's always interesting, and so on and so forth. And I'm listening, and then he gets to one point that I had stuck in my head. And he gets to one point. He's talking about Moxley. And then he starts talking about this one thing that is exactly what I wanted to say. Like, he's practically using the same words I wanted to use. He is so dead on with the thought that I had in my brain, where I was rubbing my hands together going, no one thought of this. No one's even gonna fucking mention this. I am a fucking genius. I am a professional wrestling scientist. Yeah, I was so sure. I was like, no one's gonna think of this. And then fucking Rich Kraetsch just lets it all spill out. I'm like, fuck. Wakes Kristen up. She's like, what? What's wrong? I'm like, Rich stole my point. She says, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I'm asleep. What do you mean he stole your point? Well, I had thought about this, and Rich Kraetsch came up and said it before me. He says, well, how could he have stolen it? Yeah, but he said it first, and I'm pissed. The point being, is that is that the other way you can look at the main event is that ultimately Jon Moxley won. This is the point here. When Mox started the Death Riders, he started the Death Riders on the precept that he was not into what AEW was becoming. He wanted to, break it back down to build it back up in his image, and people like myself are like, let him do it. Let the man cook, sure, because I'm not into what's going on right now kind of thing, right? And he was listening, and so, a lot of people would say right now that AEW, and I myself would say that it feels more like itself. It feels like it has an identity. It feels closer to what it used to be than what it had been for the past 18 months, 2 years. No brochacho stuff, no goofy angles, no, just straight up, clear, logical, well put together pro wrestling that is delivered by some of the best pro wrestlers on the fucking planet, right? And that was a legitimate, not only a kayfabe gripe of Moxley, but a legitimate gripe as well. So ultimately, with everyone being back on board and saying AEW's back, baby, and everything feels like it should. AEW has found its footing. The vision becomes clear. Maybe Mox overall got exactly what he wanted. Jon Moxley ultimately ended up being a winner as well because he got the AEW that he was working to try to create. And here I was sitting here with that I was sitting there in my car thinking I'm going to blow all their minds. When I talk about this, they're all going to be like, oh shit, Warren, you're... And fucking Rich Craich goes and pulls that out of nowhere. Fuck. So, look, if I were to star rate this, I'd give it 4.5 stars. I think that's fair, right? And again, like, if you want to give it a match of the year, I don't blame you, and I understand. What it all boils down to now is, personal preference and details and whatnot. Yeah, that's what it boils down to. And I think 4.5 is very good. It's an excellent match nonetheless. And it did exactly what it had to do. It probably won't be on my match of the year list by the end of the year. But I will be seeing it on multiple match of the year lists. That to me, that's unquestionable. Let's move on. Still at the top of the card, Kazuchika Okada defeated Kenny Omega to become the AEW Unified Champion, being the very first holder of the Unified Championship. Look, I'm not getting into the minutia of the belt and what Tony Khan meant. And this is one of these situations where, kind of like the Continental Classic, the first year, with the 3 belts and whatnot, I was like, you know what? I'm just letting this one right out. I don't care all that much, and it's fine, because ultimately, I was there to see 2 of the greatest of all time, who are responsible for one of the greatest wrestling series of all time, going at it one more time before my eyes, live. I'm not gonna lie. I gotta be honest and upfront with you. I got a little choked up when both of these guys were in the ring. They were getting ready to do the match before the bell. I was like, holy shit. I'm about to see an Omega Okada match right before my eyes. It was special. It felt special. It felt good. I was really happy about that. And a lot of people in that arena were as well. Like I said earlier, people were already popping before they did the introductions, before the bell pop. This crowd was into this match. You can pretend as much as you want to say Everyone needs a video package. You need a video package. You need a video package. Or you can be even dumber and say people don't understand this because they don't watch New Japan. They didn't watch it. So on and so forth. This crowd, these 25 to 29,000 people accumulated into this building, fucking knew the stakes of this match, understood what its significance was. And for that level of pop and recognition, I don't think there were enough video packages or, bloody, blood pouring out of the mouth angles to make them react that way. I think the crowd that was there understood it. And I think that from this point on, folks, if a podcaster, a pundit, whatever, right? A Sirius FM, I don't know why I started there. A Sirius FM radio host tells you, hey, people aren't going to understand this. They need video packages and whatnot. I say turn them off. Stop letting these people, who are of course bad faith, but stop allowing them to insult your intelligence, because you understood it, and 25 to 29,000 people understood it. There has to come a point where it's no longer just a question of, oh well, they're just grifting or that. No, they're insulting wrestling fans. They're basically saying wrestling fans need to be spoon-fed this shit because they're too dumb to understand what the fuck is going on. And I don't believe that. And I haven't believed that for years. And I still don't. And I have more proof to back that up as well. That wrestling fans are not the complete blithering idiots that a lot of these people who are supposed to cater to them believe they are. Like these types of comments now sort of borderline on making you feel like a complete and utter, making you come across, I should say, as a complete and utter buffoon. I'm just saying, we have to reach a moment now where we don't have to put up with this anymore. We don't have to listen to these people say, video packages. And it's enough. It's enough. If there were 5,000 people up on their feet popping, I'd be like, maybe they were right, but they weren't. They weren't. And their argument was like, well, AEW was doing video packages. Again, you can do the video packages, but you wouldn't have that type of reaction if there weren't people there understanding what the fuck was going on. Anyway, to the match. The crowd was into it. I was into it. Everyone was into it. This was another great match. With Okada, of course, targeting Kenny Omega's gut, which, connects with everything that they've been doing so far. It makes sense. They're doing tombstones on the apron and DDTs, and Omega hits a dragon superplex, does the Kreutz Wrath, and even does the one-winged angel at some point, but Don Callis pulls the ref out of the ring, which then, leads to some interference where I'm sort of going, I was afraid for a minute there that this was going to lead into the finish. It didn't, which is thankful, which is good. And they had, Rocky Romero interfered and whatnot, but it didn't close out the match. This was a war. This was, an exhausting war between two of the best to ever do it. And Okada seals it with a Rainmaker to win the match. So was this on the level of their other matches? Quite frankly, no. Was this a great match? Yes. But yeah, of course your expectations are extremely high, considering who the participants are here. Of course you're expecting this otherworldly greatness again to come and strike down, but as we were talking about here, on in the weeks to in the weeks building up to this, I was curious to see how these guys were going to deal with being 7 years older than the last time they fought each other. 7 years older, bodies banged up more, especially Kenny. I was really curious to see how they were going to do it. And the way they did it was so incredibly smart, because it was essentially a grizzled vet match. You know, they're not doing they're not working at full speed. They're not doing all these incredible maneuvers and twists and reversals like they did in previous encounters, right? They are doing it, but not at the same pace. It's not the same thing. And I'm looking at this and I was like, it's still expertly done. It's so good. And they're doing some callbacks. And they're doing the big moves, right? And the final stretch of this match, however, the final stretch of this match was exactly what you imagine an Okada Omega match to be. They're sprinting, they're going full force, they're doing reversals, they're hopping in and out of stuff. In the final moments of this match, I was like, oh, there they are. There we go. It's 2018, 2017, 2018 all over again. There they are. You know? And so they do have it in them. It's just they can't do it for like because they can't do the same because they're not the same guys. And I'm saying this. I'm saying this while we're living under the specter that a rematch is entirely possible. We might see these two wrestle each other again, and maybe this next match will completely blow my mind and retcon everything I'm saying here. Where I'm like, sorry guys, gals, non-binary pals, I was wrong. I was wrong. These two still have it. They are the best in the world. They are exactly who they are. I thought this was just another excellent match. And Okada winning ultimately is a very smart maneuver because Kenny's hurt, and you know, like, there's a degree in this where Kenny is like, look, I shouldn't be able to beat, with the story we've been telling, I shouldn't be able to beat a healthy Kazuchika Okada. It doesn't make sense. You know, Kenny gets major surgery, and it's a major point of the entire story. You know, that he's hurt, he's injured, that Okada's taking advantage of it. Like, he can't beat a healthy Kazuchika Okada. I thought this was phenomenal work. Absolutely phenomenal work. And I really do hope that there's another one that's going to pop in down the road. I'd be for another. I'd be 100% pro another visit from these two once again. And and don't get anything twisted. This crowd was into it. People were into it. That last Rainmaker, there was something disheartening about it, because I think everyone wanted Kenny to. And here's another thing: Kenny Omega got one of the biggest reactions of the night. It is impossible to underestimate how significant Kenny Omega is to All Elite Wrestling. These fans love him and they want more of him. Yes, they love the Hangman. Yes, they love Swerve. Kenny, though, with his entrances and everything aside, all of that stuff. Um, the people, they just love Kenny Omega. The AEW fans adore Kenny Omega in droves. He's so integral to this brand. It's phenomenal. He gets these big reactions all the time. People love Kenny. People love Kenny because they know what they're into when what they're about to get into. So now Okada, on top of that, wins the title. I think it's a good move, like I said, because it makes sense in the story, and I wouldn't be surprised if Kenny lobbied for it. And, Okada with the belt. If you're a New Japan fan, you know exactly, if you were around for the big Okada reign, well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okada with the belt is natural, and, Okada without a belt is an affront to nature, essentially. What would I give this? I'd probably give this maybe a 4.5, 4.75. I'm not quite sure. 4.5 for sure. This is the kind of match where I'd probably look, I'd probably need to watch it again. Watch it on TV as opposed to in the arena, and maybe there's stuff that I'll be able to pick up on that I didn't from my seat. So we're in that range of match rating, if you please. Toni Storm then defeated Mercedes Moné to retain, that's what I said, to remain AEW Women's World Champion. This was fabulous. This was excellent. This was pro wrestling. This was an absolutely bonkers, incredible match. Now, the setup was simple. For months, they had been setting up Mercedes Moné to be this invincible monster. Hasn't been pinned cleanly once in AEW. She's collecting belts up against Toni Storm, fan favorite, right? And now everyone's worried. All the stuff that led into it, all of the preposterous accusations. All I can say is this. Isn't it? I think it's something else for Mercedes Moné to have enforced her creative control like she did to put over the world champion so strong. My God. So selfish. I can't believe she did that. People, this is the dumbest people on earth with all of this, right? And the big match, and it puts Toni over, like I said, she puts Toni over clean, super strong, right? This whole operation from the Hollywood ending to now for Toni Storm has just been a consistent push to make her a bigger and bigger superstar. And Toni leaves this match truly being the top woman in AEW and one of the top stars in pro wrestling. She just won arguably not only the biggest wrestling match in the history of AEW, but the biggest women's wrestling match in all of pro wrestling, period, probably this year. Easily. I'm trying to think off the top of my head anything that came across as bigger and with more built to it and more hype. And you know what the story here turned out to be? The story here turned out to be Mercedes underestimated or overestimated herself. How about that? She was too cocky, right? And now, with hindsight, all of these little things that she was doing in the matches, sitting down and having a steak dinner while Toni's wrestling, it's all like she's too cocky. She's not taking Tony seriously enough, right? And then Tony, this one week during Dynamite, she comes to have her own steak dinner. They have a steak dinner set up for her, right? But Tony is not looking at the food. She doesn't even touch the fucking food. And she's got her eyes fixated in the ring. And she's staring at everything. It was the Mina Shirakawa match. She's staring at everything that's happening in the ring. And she's not letting herself be distracted. Tony kept her eye on the ball. Mercedes was, living the CEO life. She was doing her thing. She was being overconfident and underprepared. Tony stayed focused. And you'll recall, if you listen to my Dynamite reviews, and you should, by the way, subscribe to the channel, follow the podcast, all that good stuff. If you recall, when I was recording my Dynamite review that week, where Tony was not reacting and just being completely blank, and commentary was like, why is she, why is Tony not reacting? Why is she like this, And I myself was like, okay, what's the gimmick here? What's the thing? What are they trying to tell here? And people were telling me, oh, well, Warren, it's because Mercedes is wrestling her friend and she's just paying it, she's being serious about it because she doesn't want anything bad to happen to me. And I'm like, nah, I don't buy that. That doesn't make sense. That's headcanon that we're creating here. They were trying to tell me something, but it wasn't, oh, she's worried about Mina. Because even when Mina was getting her ass kicked, she was still like completely stone cold. Stone faced. If she was worried about Mina, she'd be reacting when Mina would eat moves and go, whatever the fuck. But that wasn't the case. So when you look back at this build, and you dig into these details, that's the story they've been saying from the start. Mercedes came in too arrogant, too not prepared enough, and just got overwhelmed by Toni Storm. And this match, look, I thought it had so much grit to it. These girls, pro wrestling is supposed to make you believe that they're hurting each other, that they really don't like each other. That's what a good pro wrestling match is supposed to do. And they succeeded here. They were in that building. And I was looking at the moves and was like, nah, there's a little more edge to this. There's a little more stank to it. Yes, Tony did some goofy stuff at first, with the Luther thing and whatnot. Okay. But they got that out of the way. The rest of this match was all business. And it was gritty. It wasn't overly flashy, right? And I was into it. And I was rooting for Mercedes. I thought Mercedes was going to win this. I was so excited for her to win this. Because the discourse would have been fantastic. That would have been the kind of discourse that would have just fed this channel for weeks. For weeks upon weeks upon weeks. So I was really excited for it. So, when Tony does the 3 consecutive Storm Zeros, and Mercedes gets out, I pop out of my seat. I'm clapping my hands. I'm like, let's go. I'm so into it. And they're beating the shit out of each other. And they're stretching the hell out of each other. This lived up in every sense to the match to the expectation. This was the match. I have nothing bad to say about it. I thought it was phenomenal stuff. And they're not doing, and it's not one of these matches where they're doing this enormity of cuckoo crazy moves where they feel like they have to do these spots, right? And we just have, no, they're deciding to wrestle a match and they're pulling out their typical arsenals, but they're doing it in a way that makes it feel big, that makes it feel nastier, angrier. The shots are a little harder. The submissions are pulled back a little tighter. Everything feels a little more snug. I fucking love this match. And to the point, look, to me, this match is the match of the night. It is a 5-star match. It is going to be on my list by the end of the year. This was absolutely phenomenal. It truly was the best match of All In. In a match on a show that had multiple contenders. You know, it's not like one of these shows where you have one match which outshines everything else, and you're like, this is a 5-star by a mile. No, not necessarily by a mile. Because if you wanted to come back and counter argue with me that it was the main event, I'm open to that. And I'm like, sure. If you wanted to tell me that it was Okada and Omega, I'm like, sure. Absolutely. But I really think that this is the best pro wrestling match on the entire show that delivered from A to Z, that once again showed that these two women are at the top of their game, that both of them are, I think you could interchange them being best in the world, one or two. I think that's a fair discussion to have. You could flip them around. Tony's ascension to superstardom is one of the biggest stories from AEW of the past year, and it's still ongoing. And one of AEW's biggest successes in creating a star. Not just a star, by the way, a superstar, a pro wrestling superstar. And Mercedes continues to have nothing but excellent matches, continuing to cement the argument that she is the greatest North American women's wrestler of all time. Just her output just never fails. She is incredible. And this is someone who's stumbled out of the gate. If you ever wanted to look at the path that AEW has been on over the past few months, maybe a little over a year ago when Mercedes began, up until now, look at Mercedes' progression from when she came in and was stuck doing, sports entertainment stuff, right? She wanted to do her character work. She wanted to do the little backstage bits, and all that shit. And it's funny how the moment she started refocusing on what she does best, something that I here on this fucking show have said so many goddamn times, when Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, even back in the day, when she focuses on what she is best at, she is practically untouchable. And now I think she is untouchable. She's focusing on what she does best, which is wrestling, not the bits, not the, whatever, the backstage segments and all that shit. She focuses on being a great pro wrestler. That's what she is. That's what she does. That's what she truly excels at. This is someone who has elevated herself in AEW, who adapted, because we've talked about it with other WWE people who were in the company, and you could argue they're still with the company, who haven't adapted. And look at what happened. They're either not there anymore, or when they come out, people sort of go, cringe, And those who did adapt are thriving. John Moxley, Christian Cage, just two off the top of my head like that. But throw Mercedes into that. And she was not doing well. She was not getting the returns expected when she started. But AEW finds its footing. Somehow she finds her footing throughout that as well. Not only does she find her footing, she excels. She goes above and beyond. She truly becomes an AEW star. A wrestling star. She's phenomenal. 5 stars. Incredible match. No. Why don't we... Let's see here. We'll talk about the before we go, before we jump a little more all around here, let's go with the other match that I expected to deliver and did. Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay defeating the Young Bucks. This was just so much. This was so good. This was so good. I was just coming back from from my unsuccessful time at the merch table, and Will gets his special entrance, and Will gets his special entrance. I'm trying to say too many things at once. Will gets his special entrance. Then we have JoJo Offerman who comes out to sing Swerve Strickland's old indie theme. And then you have the Young Bucks doing their revolutionary gimmick thing, the Founding Fathers gimmick. And if there's anything I could give a proper critique here, where I was like, I didn't care for this one, is that everyone here had a special entrance. And at some point you're kind of like, let's go. I think the Bucks didn't need it. You want to do the tie-in with Assassin's Creed because they're giving you a nice little sponsorship. Okay, that's fine. Bringing in JoJo Offerman to do the song, I thought was such a nice touch. It was such a delightful touch, and it's for Swerve's old theme, and I thought that this is nice. This for me is nice. I like this. So I enjoyed that. Maybe you don't do the Bucks then. It's like, I don't know. When you're there in the arena, you're like, all right, let's keep the ball moving. Especially since the video that we were getting, I'm sure is not the same that was being broadcast live. You kind of feel like it's, the active camera that was used on TV wasn't always the one that was used in the arena. I'm fairly certain, because there's a lot of stuff that I feel like we missed. But hey, not just this match, the entire show, but nonetheless, what a great, this was the match that we needed for at this point in the show as well, where we had some fine matches, but you're kind of like, okay, now we need something to sink our teeth into. All right, you throw out these 4 guys and magic happens, and they're having just an absolute incredible barn burner. The Bucks again continue to be one of the greatest tag teams that just ever existed. And Swerve and Ospreay, 2 guys together, united because they're, because of friendship, just coming after the Bucks and being able to keep up. And I love the finish. I thought this finish was great, where the Bucks are having a super kick party on Will, who's hung up in the ropes, and Swerve then comes in to take some of the beating. He comes to take the bullet, and that then leads us into Will being able to get back on his feet and then get at the Bucks, and then they being the baby faces, they do the house call hidden blade combo, and they secure the win. And it was a phenomenal match. It was just an absolutely phenomenal match. I think they pinned Nick. I believe it's Nick that was pinned. And you could see Nick trying to reach for his brother, right? He was trying to reach for Matt, but Matt had been taken out. He was on the floor. And that's, and that's when you knew. It's like, okay, it's finished. This is it. Matt's dead. It's finished. This is where the match is going to end. It's so good. The Bucks are so fucking good at this. They are so incredibly good at this. And it was spectacular. And there's this one sequence where they're just in and out of each other's moves. But like flash, flash, flash. I'm like, holy fuck. What an incredible series of just like boom, 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 boom. Reversals, blocks, and it lasted for like maybe 10, 15 seconds of just nonstop shit. Like, this is tremendous. Maybe it was shorter, but it felt like it lasted for an eternity with all the great stuff they were doing all at once. I love this match. It's probably my second favorite match of the evening. 4 3/4 stars for me. Just an absolute fantastic match that showcase again that the Bucks are one of the greatest to do it, and that Swerve and Ospreay, you put them in any position and these guys delivered. Like, they're such, I know there's another guy who uses the expression, but they really are 5-tool players. You just drop them in any type of circumstance where you need them, and these guys deliver and over deliver. It's just excellent stuff. Excellent, excellent stuff. I'm going to tell you, I'm kind of surprised that they decided to go with Will and Strickland winning. I thought the bolder strategy would have been Will and Swerve not being able to challenge for a full year. That would have made things really interesting. But look, they probably want to keep the floor open for challengers for Hangman. Look, I don't know what the plan is. Of course, I don't. But, right now, the floor of challengers for Hangman is very high. If Mox wants a rematch, I guess they can accommodate that, right? You've got Swerve, you've got Will, you've got MJF now, who's back on that level as well, right? After winning his match. Like, the floor is very, there's a lot of stuff you can do at this point. Kenny's going to be around. Then you want to talk about having history, right? I feel that the next movement that's going to happen here is going to be a blood and guts match that Hangman is going to lead. I think that's what my gut tells me. I don't know if I'm off base or not, but I think we're going to be entering the War Games, the blood and guts situation. I think that's where we're going. But anyway, I thought that we're going off on a tangent here, but nonetheless, I kind of had the vibe that Will and Swerve being at odds, maybe at each other, maybe Swerve being a little bitter, not a full heel turn, but just being pissed off at Will. That could have been interesting. We didn't get that. Oh well. Excellent stuff, though. Really, really excellent stuff. So I guess let's see here. Let's break down the other matches here that also took place. Let's say we go a little higher up on the card here. The Hurt Syndicate retained the AEW World Tag Team titles by defeating Jet Speed and the Patriarchy. The match is what it is. I didn't think it was all that great. It wasn't the worst match on the show. Congratulations to the Hurt Syndicate. But it was fine. It was fine. There's not much that I can really add here. However, the true talking point here is at the end, the Patriarchy turn on Christian Cage. Nick Wayne basically after the match hits the unprettier on Christian Cage, or the kill switch, I guess. And Mother Wayne seemed to be in on it. Kip Sabian seemed to be in on it. So we're officially breaking up the Patriarchy, which is something that a lot of people were expecting. There's been a lot of talk about Edge and Christian having one last run as a team, and that the Christian face turn was going to happen. When it happened in the arena, I'm like, oh, so they're setting the stage for it. And then they do, and I thought they were going to do that and then walk away. But then they set up Christian to eat a concerto. And, sometimes in pro wrestling, you can feel something, you just know, you feel the beats. And I was like, nah, they're taking too much time here. They're taking too much time setting up the concerto. And, with Nick standing over him with the other chair. He's like, why isn't he doing it? Oh, wait, Adam Copeland's going to come out, isn't he? Adam Copeland comes out to one of the big reactions, right? Because everyone likes the Metalingus. And he comes in, I think he takes out, I didn't see exactly who he took out, right? But he ran in with his pointy baseball bat. That what's the Rebecca? I forget what it's called. Stacy. I forget what it's called. It doesn't matter. And he chases off the heels essentially, and he helps Christian up to his feet, and then tells him to go find yourself. Basically offering an olive branch and a play on the now infamous "Go fuck yourself" line from Christian Cage when he turned on Cope. What is it, like 2 years ago? How long has it been? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so that was the big news. So a big surprise return by Adam Copeland, and I guess the Edge and Christian team up is happening. I don't know. I'll see how things go. I'm not particularly excited about it. Like it's not giving me goosebumps. It's not doing it for me. And I'm sure there'll be bits in this where I'm going to find entertaining. But what I'm afraid of is that this kind of match will bring out and build, okay? And the build will bring out all the worst instincts out of Adam Copeland, which he has not entirely lost in AEW. He's been good for bits, and then other bits he's been not very good. I think he was really good in the second half of his feud against the Death Riders when they really, really tried to save the angle, and they did. I thought he was particularly good there. Thought the matches stunk. Well, the match at it was a Revolution, right? Wasn't that Revolution, or was it? Anyway, it stunk. Whereas the rematch was better, but you could put a lot of that on Mox, who decided to be Mox that evening. So I don't know how. I'm approaching this with a certain amount of reservation. I'm just holding back. I'm like, let's see where they're going to take this, because as it stands right now, I'm not particularly into it. I'm curious. I'm also thinking, Christian Cage might just be able to hang on to everything here and make sure, his instincts since being in AEW have been fantastic. So we'll see how it goes on that front. But off the top of my head, I'm like, this has the potential to really stink up the joint. But maybe it won't. At the very least, I'm curious. Not even morbidly curious. I'm curious. So, let's move on. Casino Gauntlet matches. We had two of those. We had the men's and the women's. I thought the women's was better overall. Here, let me pull this up here. I've got. There they are. I've got the Casino Gauntlet, the women's Casino Gauntlet match. Sorry here, I'm just trying to get my notes together. It's a different environment. I'm a little afraid. Of course, Chris Statlander and Megan Bain started off the gauntlet, and they were followed by Willow Nightingale, Tay Mello, Tekla, Julia Hart, Queen Aminata, Mina Shirakawa, Athena, Thunder Rosa, Shuri, who made a surprise appearance / debut, and Alex Windsor, who also made a special appearance / debut. Athena ends up winning the match, spectacular fashion, with the O face on Mina Shirakawa. So she will be next in line for a women's gauntlet match. I really like this one better. I thought there was just better wrestling overall. Less people, better wrestling. Didn't feel like it dragged. But here's the thing. I think this match really ended up showing who the core of this division is. Like, because you have women here who are so incredibly good that, you know, you, I don't mean any disrespect here, but Tay Mello coming in and, you know, being a little sloppy and goofing up her spots, you're like, there's no place for her in this environment. There really isn't. Not when you have women like, not when you have later on Shuri and Alex Windsor beating the piss out of each other, right? When you have Shuri kicking the shit out of Mina Shirakawa, right? Where Mina's probably like, oh man, I left Stardom so I wouldn't have to be kicked by her anymore. And now look at this fucking shit. now I gotta take some more kicks here. And, you know, Statlander and Willow and Megan Bain and Tekla is very sound as well. And Queen Aminata, you know, they're letting her be aggressive. Like I see her when she wrestles in DPW and Deadlock Pro. She's just like a badass. Now they're letting her lean into that more and more. I think we're about to see a major shift in how this division is approached. Like, there's no room for a Penelope Ford here. Who's fine, don't get me wrong, but you know, I can't imagine week after week seeing Penelope Ford matches while, you know, Queen Aminata sits on the sidelines, or Alex Windsor, or you know, Tekla or Willow, or none of it makes sense in that aspect. It really shows that there's an entirely different core of talent, of depth of talent in this division. You know, I know it's cliche to say, but the women's division has never been this deep. It's never been this good. And I think the gauntlet proved it. And I thought it was better overall. You know, we're not going to go through all of it, but I thought it was better. I really thought it was better. And as I'm recording this, it's super unfortunate, but Shuri has to go back to Japan for elbow surgery. So that sucks because I'm convinced they had plans for her they had plans for her for Forbidden Door. Now it's probably out the window. That really fucking sucks. I was really excited for Shuri in AEW, and got a good reaction too from the crowd as well, but not as good a reaction as Athena did. You know, local girl gets her big opportunity. Plus, she's already beloved by the AEW fans. It's a smart move. She has to stop slumming it, and I know, like, we can move on now from you know, the forever championship stuff and the title reign. No one's ever going to beat that. There's never going to be another, at this point, there's never going to be another women's champion in Ring of Honor who's going to beat Athena's record. So let's just move on. Let's just move on. That's all we need to do. Anyway, this was very good. I loved it. I thought it was, I'd give it, yeah, I'd slap a 4 on it. I thought it was really good. I'd slap 4 on this. Now the men's, though, the men's, I'm not quite as enthusiastic about it. And I think the crowd for a while wasn't as into it as well. There's a whole, like, splosh in the middle of this match where I think people were expecting something to happen. They were expecting a return. They were expecting a big surprise. Yeah, Juice Robinson returning, you know, got a huge reaction, but that wasn't necessarily the surprise that people, I think, were waiting for. You know, I had worked myself into thinking Danielson was going to show up. That would have been tremendous, right? You know, no one, you know, and Mystico was already in here. That also got a pretty good reaction from the crowd as well. Like, but these were, you know, but we knew Mystico was going to be in it. I think there was really there's a whole lull in the middle of this match where everyone is sort of on the floor too, just waiting. You know, like, is everyone dead? Mystico hadn't been in the match for like 7 minutes or something. And it just took me out of it. And look, I didn't particularly care for this match because of the lull, you know. And then Max Caster coming in at the end was, you know, a fun surprise that got a fun little pop by the audience. But, you know, by the time Beast Mortos comes out, you know, people are like, oh, okay, you know. Josh Alexander, that's fine. But again, Anthony Bowens, Roderick Strong, all people that we enjoy. But I think people were expecting surprises because what made those initial Casino Gauntlet matches so innovative and interesting and fun was the level of unpredictability. Now it's just like, oh, well, it's these guys. And you had the mixture in the original one of having, in the original ones, of having main event guys being thrown into this match here with mid-carders. So you never quite knew who you were going to get. And, outside of MJF here, who is like the true main, he was the only main eventer in this one here. Everyone else was going, all right. Again, no one did you go, PU, what the fuck is this? And Max Caster wasn't around long enough for it to even matter, quite honestly. It's just like, there was a lull, lack of surprises. I think I'm out on the Casino Gauntlet matches. Until we get one that can successfully replicate what made them great. Because don't get me wrong, I understand you can't start putting main eventers in this Casino Gauntlet match because all the main eventers are main eventing. They're all busy doing other stuff on the card. I understand that. But it takes away from what makes the match special. And a lot of people just waiting around, wait your turn. It took me out. Then at some point, it starts feeling more like a scramble than something really unique. I don't know. I'm kind of out of it. It wasn't terrible. Maybe 3.25 star. I don't know, something like that. 3.5. 3.5. It's good. It wasn't 3.25. I'm not going 3.5. That's all right. It was fine. Really nothing to complain about other than it was really too long. There was no reason for this to go 30 minutes. No reason, right? Isn't that what? Let me see here. Yeah, 34 minutes. There's no reason for this to go 34 minutes. What are we doing here? Anyway, let's move on again. Let's move on. So, Casino Gauntlet matches. Then the four-way for the vacant AEW TNT title. Dustin Rhodes defeated Daniel Garcia, Kyle Fletcher, and Sammy Guevara. Of course, beforehand, Adam Cole came to the ring. It leaked to media beforehand earlier in the morning that Adam Cole was not going to be on the show and that they were reshuffling and they were going to do this four-way instead. And then Adam Cole comes to the ring and gives a teary-eyed promo where he's basically saying, look, I have a problem. There's a condition that I have right now, and it's keeping me from wrestling, and I might be gone for a while. And it's emotional, it's teary-eyed. You've got Kyle Fletcher and Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, who come in the ring to hug him, to share those same feelings. And he's upset, and clearly something very bad is happening to Adam Cole, quite unfortunately. There's a lot of speculation still going on. I don't think we've had anything definitive. There's been a lot of speculation nonetheless, a lot of rumors that it is concussion based, and if so, he might in fact be done. Because if he was concussion prone, he had suffered a bad one, and now if he's just like getting concussed right and left, he might be done unless he goes to one of these miracle therapists, that Danielson and Adam Copeland had. I don't know. It's certainly not good. It's certainly not good news. And people were very taken aback, gave him all the support, but it did kill the momentum. It did, in the building, it did soften things quite a bit. The match itself didn't help reinvigorate anything until the finish. I thought this, like, I think it's universally accepted that this was the worst match of the night. Now, I can blame Tony Khan for slapping this, last minute together, and whoever's available, who's got your gear, get into it. I can't blame him for doing that, like, and just giving something, and everyone working their best, doing their best. And even though most of us were expecting Fletcher to win, he didn't. And I think that in a circumstance where Kyle Fletcher was going to have the one-on-one with Adam Cole, I still think he would have won. I think they decided to pivot here and have Dustin win for two reasons. The first reason, to get the crowd back into it. Look, Dustin, he came out earlier with the Von Erichs and stuff, and people in Texas love Dustin. So him winning this big match here for him, winning his singles title in AEW, that was a big deal for him, and it was a big deal for the audience, and the victory really did help elevate the rest, right? And then you had, I guess, the Von Erichs came out. It was hard to make out who was joining him in the ring. There were dudes coming in. I'm pretty sure it was the Von Erichs, coming in to congratulate him, and the crowd ate it all up. So that lifted the spirits here and elevated past the bad match and the terrible announcement. So we got something good out of this. And thankfully, look, I would have probably booked it the same way. It's like, I can't have the heel win here. We're already sucking the air out of the room with the Adam Cole stuff. So we're going to go with the easy local boy victory to get the big pop. And it did, and it worked. And it reset the vibes. And the second reason why I think he went with this is probably he just wants Kyle to have a significant singles victory for his first championship. And I can buy that too. As opposed to winning it in a four-way. There was something significant about beating Adam Cole for it. Now, grizzled veteran Dustin Rhodes. Okay. I think it works. But it's like such a weird match. It wasn't very good, quite frankly. Sammy Guevara, man, I don't know. I know he's one of the four pillars. These so-called four pillars. I don't know what you do with Sammy anymore. Sammy feels like he doesn't belong in this era of AEW. He doesn't. Daniel Garcia, look. They need to do something, and something fast with Daniel Garcia. I don't know. I'm speechless. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Well, no, I do know what I would do. Repackage them, change the music, give him a little something different, and push the guy. Because ever since he resigned last fall, it's been pretty trash. Hasn't been good. Not exactly a memorable TNT title run. That's all I'm saying. And I think there is a spot for him on this roster. I think he belongs in AEW. But holy shit, this is not working out. This is really not working out. All right. I think we only have one more match to talk about, which is the opener, where the Ops defeated the Death Riders. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here that happened that there was a lot of stuff here that didn't happen that I was expecting. I was expecting Hook to play some part of this. Whatever. Gabe Kidd was the third man for the Trios title, so I guess the Trios titles are, whatever. But Gabe Kidd was here. Look, I thought it was the crowd was into it because they like Samoa Joe. They really like Powerhouse Hobbs too. He always gets great reactions when he's in the ring. The match was fine. Like, nothing to write home about. What you give it a 3, 3.25. It was fine. A good way to kick off the evening, to get people excited. Everyone loves Joe. Everyone loves Samoa Joe. It's so easy. He's an easy guy to get people excited for. And then, of course, after the match, we mentioned it earlier, Samoa Joe gets Pillmanized by the Death Riders. So he was taken out, could not be around for the main event. And that sort of leaves in flux too, right? Does that mean he's gone from the ops? Is he taking time off TV? What does that mean for the trios titles? These trios titles, man, most protected titles in all of AEW. And they could be so much more. Anyway. That was the main card. As far as the 0 hour, I only saw FTR defeating the Outrunners again. I thought it was really quickly. I thought it was good, but not as good as their collision match that they had last week, which was absolutely phenomenal. But I think it was, not bad. I did not see the two others. Did not see the Costco guys do their bullshit, and that's instead I've seen highlights of Trent Beretta pie facing the kid, not the Rizzler, the Big Justice kid, and that's enough for me. Nor did I see the Von Erichs match against Shane Taylor Promotions. The Von Erich kids are not very good. So there you have it. That's my breakdown, my review of AEW All In Texas. Again, a good show, a very, very good show that I was fortunate to be able to see live. I'll probably rewatch some things on TV, and maybe some thoughts and opinions will fluctuate after listening to the commentary, seeing things up close. Maybe there's some things that'll change, but I haven't rewatched it yet, and I plan to, but not just yet. But because I saw it and I'm happy and I'm satisfied and I'm whatever. We'll see. This might have been the least interesting amount of information that I could have delivered unto you. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Subscribe. I'm completely off my game. I'm not at my home. So, and it's funny how these things become like ingrained, but it's fine. I feel comfortable. There just won't be a special outro. You're just going to have to deal with the hard cut out. All right. See you next time. Hard cut.